The year was 1980. I was in the 3rd grade. And let's just call him Marcus. Marcus was standing in front of me in the line, and like me, he was from very humble beginnings. My dad had been in an accident and injured his leg and was off work for 2 whole years. Marcus, like me, was being teased once again, and he was the target. I started seeing the stain on the ground at the base of his pant leg before I realized that he had urinated on himself. It tore at my heart, and I was only in the 3rd grade. My mother likened it to the wounded bird type syndrome. She said you would bring home the stray animals and you wanted to always help everybody. That day, I took my sweater and I, for whatever reason, put it around Marcus's waist. I felt his pain, even at 9 years old. Wow. Incredible, heartbreaking, and it felt like it was me. I went with him, walking behind him as he went to the restroom, and I could hear the kids laughing. Well, of course, he's now out of sight, so who's up next? Me. My clothes weren't fancy. I didn't have the stylish clothing, the stylish hairdos, none of it. But what I did have, and I didn't know then, was a huge heart and compassion for people. You see, I have that face that people think that I'm always serious, but it's not so much the seriousness, it's that I'm constantly watchful. I care about people, and I want better for our world. Years later, I was walking in the mall, and this very tall gentleman, very attractive, started walking toward me, and normally you pass each other. You walk to the right, and the person walks to the right. This gentleman walked right to me, and he stopped. Well, me, trying to duck around him, I wasn't able to because he stepped in my path again. He said, Cedra Sherrod, my birth name, and I froze. Of course, because he was good looking, I was like, wow, I'm impressed. And he said, thank you. I don't know if I ever said that day. You gave me your sweater in the 3rd grade when I was being teased. And it gave me a huge lesson in life. Be careful how you treat people. Be careful what you say to them and how you make them feel, because that's the impression that you give, and that may be the only one they leave with. Marcus was not that same little boy anymore. And I like to think that I was woven into the fabric of his life and that he passed on that kindness. I was driving this time. Normally, my husband drives the car, and this time I was wanting to give him the opportunity to get some sleep. You see, we had to drop everything. My father-in-law had a medical emergency and was rushed to the hospital. The panic in my husband's voice as he called me that day, and I was on my way to a doctor appointment, it scared me. He said they couldn't revive and get him to actually wake up. My father-in-law, totally into fitness, always a fitness guy his whole entire life. And we had no idea what was coming. We drove from California to Arizona. Probably made it there in much less time than what we planned. We get there, and by the grace of God, he was okay. But this time, I was driving, and we were heading back home when the phone rang. I looked down slightly for a second at my phone, and I realized that it was my arbitration attorney. You see, in 2001, October, I was walked into an office, and I was told that I was being removed from my position and placed under an administrative investigation. I was labeled a bully. I was said that I had created a hostile work environment for my staff, that I had grabbed a man's hands looking for tattoos and wondering where he was from, as if he was in a gang. This was only because I was raised and born Compton, California. Everybody loves CPT now when they say straight out of, but it was used as a weapon against me. My husband had run for sheriff of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and I was the political backlash. I was the target. Stripped from my position as a unit commander, 200 staff members, 65 locations all over LA County, and a $30 million budget under my charge. And within a second, everything was stripped. Well, back to the drive. I'm driving home and I see my attorney's name on my phone and I am scared. I don't know what's coming. He opened very jovial. "How are you today?" And I said, nervously, "I'm fine. How are you?" He says, "Well, I'm great, especially knowing that you just won your arbitration against the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Your contractual rights were violated, and you were disciplined without just cause." I broke. You see, I had been a drill instructor for 5 years, training with the same department. I was on national television. I was trying to do the job well, and I'd always been taught to work hard, and in a second, all of that meant nothing. That win was not my victory. That win was a victory for anyone who had actually gone through what I had gone through. I had my husband finish that conversation because I couldn't. It felt like everything had been taken from me. I would later learn that it didn't define me. I believe I was 4 years old. And I only know that because my mother told me at 5 that I had worn out what my dad taught me. My father, Samuel, had always told me to ask why. And you give a kid that question, be ready. I asked why about everything. I was respectful because I knew better than to be why with an attitude. But it led me to ask why in school. It led me to ask why when I became a truck driver. It led me to ask why when I went to cosmetology school. And it led me to ask why when I became a deputy sheriff. I wanted to know why we didn't follow the policies that we so readily enforced, but that they became guidelines when it was something that we didn't want to face. I wanted to know why a lieutenant was allowed to work overtime back to back to back to back when she wasn't showing up for even her regular shift most days. I wanted to know why certain deputies were allowed to have breaks and leave the jail facilities, and it caused me to not get a lunch break. I wanted to know why we were in the space that we were, where the community figured, and they'd say, forget the police. Well, you fill in that other word. They didn't believe in us. They called us po-po and 5-0, and where we could joke about that, it stung. You see, I am a black woman, an officer, and I have to deal with all sides of it. But could you imagine if I wasn't there? Would it be even worse? My why led me to want to be part of the solution, not adding to the problem. I asked why executives within our department would allow a case to be placed against me. Me handing them document after document and screaming, I didn't do this. I asked why moldy, spoiled bread was served to over 3,000 incarcerated people. I asked why they didn't go forward with the investigation that I requested about the same. And I never got answers. And to this day, I'm sitting here now. I'm still wondering why. That arbitration win, though, gives me a little bit of solace because I know my why. It no longer means that I threw away a career and, oh my gosh, why did I work so hard? Because look what happened at the end. My why became the reason that I'm sitting before you now. There's a message that I have for the world, and I'll always begin with the question, why? I tell my 21-year-old self? I guess I would tell the same as my 54-year-old self. I'm unashamed about my age. I'm blessed to have made it this far. The same applies for me to pause, pray, and then proceed. You see, in my opinion, too often we knee-jerk any reaction that happens. I can share a story with you about that. I was sitting in an office with a woman who did not believe that I should have been her supervisor. You can take from that whatever you want, but you can imagine what it was like. Suddenly, out of nowhere, because she was used to speaking to people however she wanted to, she said, "Your husband must love witches." And where people were like, "What? You didn't chop her up? You didn't curse her out? You didn't scream?" I didn't move. I watched the clock and I waited until it clicked at the high noon hour. And I said, "No, my husband doesn't like witches or he would be married to you." You can imagine how her face changed. And I said, "Well, you know what? Witches ride on brooms. You probably that wouldn't work out too well for you." She ran to the captain's office and I was called in. And the only thing that the captain focused on was the fact that I had called her a witch. Again, I paused. I said a prayer. Jeremiah 1:9 is my favorite because it's basically God touching my lips and giving me the words, because if CeeCee were to say the words, they would not go so well. And I noticed that the captain had a form on his desk ready to fill it out to write me up. I didn't change my expression. I put on my best poker face and I said, "Sir, I see that you're going to document this. If you could grab one more form for this woman here," as what she left out was that she had called me a witch first. Sometimes we miss the moment because we're focused on what just happened to me. Had I just focused on what just happened to me with being placed under investigation and lied on profusely, I would not be sitting here before you. I thank God that my thoughts were never too dark, but I got into a pretty bad rabbit hole of wondering what in the world I could have done to someone else. I would tell that 21-year-old young lady to keep going. I would tell her that the world is not going to accept you on sight in some settings. I would tell her that at a very young and fit age, she would be a drill instructor training thousands of other people on how to do the job the right way. I would tell her that she would win and she would overcome and that the arbitration win was coming. I would remind her that God allows certain tests to sharpen us. We just can't see it in the moment. I would tell her to shine. I would tell her to smile. I would tell her to bury deep the feeling of insecurity and her introvertedness that people don't understand. And I would tell her, game on. There's a huge problem in society today, and in particular with my profession. There's a widening gap between the community and law enforcement, and no one's hearing each other. We're shouting, and I have to remind you that I wear a uniform, so you need to listen to me. The community says, I pay your salary. We finger point back and forth, and no one's listening. You see, I have a gun belt with a whole lot of equipment on it, and there are certain things that I can do at a given time. I don't need to rush into every situation, but people feeling jaded or not being able to be emotionally intelligent enough to know when to stop on both sides of that argument. It keeps us in the same space. And there is a huge reduction of people who, quite honestly, look like me in law enforcement. Diversity is a word that scares everyone, and no one really wants to talk about that. And they don't want to talk about the problems in law enforcement, and they don't want to talk about the crime in the community. I have a reason to be mad. I have a reason to be authoritarian, and the battle goes back and forth. But what I am doing is I am using one of our codes, which is code 3, means we're rolling emergency. You hear the lights and sirens, well, you see the lights and sirens, and you see the car rolling really fast down the street. They're trying to get to a call. One of the things that has always bothered me is that when that becomes, I'm trying to cross the light because I want to go to lunch, if we're keeping it real. My job as an officer is to protect and serve, and that has even become a joke to some. And yes, for the record, I love donuts. I do, as do most of the people in the community. But Code 3 Conversations is the platform that I'm using to bring people to the table to have those discussions. Come on in the room, bring coffee, and please a double chocolate donut for me. And let's have those conversations. Let's talk about how we can bridge the gap, and it won't be overnight, believe me. I believe that there is a need for young people who look like me and come from all walks of life as well. This is your time to actually don the uniform and be part of a solution. None of us are getting out of this life thing alive, right? So we may as well make a difference while we're here. Code 3 Conversations is an opportunity for you to come and sit to the table, throw it all out there. Not the buzzwords that we hear at podiums and how we're caring for the community, and yet, are we? Is it caring for the community when I have to stop a partner from going too far? Is it caring for the community when I show up late, or, hey, it is what it is, that's this neighborhood? Is it caring for the community if we don't do the work in the background to not just talk about training, but to train for the things that are not on our gun belt? Our communication, being clear in our speech, understanding that much like me arresting a big 6'3" guy one day, it was my communication that got him in handcuffs. I am 5'4" to his 6'3". And although physically fit back when that happened, I would never have known that it was simply him wanting to be respected. He knew he was getting arrested, and he was okay. That simple story and so many like that helped save me throughout my career. And I never mistreated others. And I believe that we all can do the same. So I welcome you to Code 3 Conversations. Let's talk this out once and for all. It's the only way we are going to have a better world. Man, I've experienced so many things that are against what I wear the uniform for. April of this year, there was the win of the arbitration. February 4th, actually on Rosa Parks' birthday, I decided to retire. She sat down so that I could stand taller, so I figured I'd repay that. And that means that I can't stop with just saying, hey, I'm done. I walk away. I was lied on profusely, and my career, where I thought it was being derailed, it just activated my destiny. I need to be able to help others because the mistreatment has continued. I had a knock on the door one day. It was actually right near Thanksgiving. And I say that because the attorney that was serving papers to my husband that day almost thought it was funny. They have a post that they put out on social media, and I am standing in my doorway in basically my jammies, lounge clothes, holding up a piece of paper. You see, when you serve someone with legal documents for court, all you need to do is drop it at their feet. Even if they don't take it in their hand, they're served. I did not know that the man was recording me at the time, and not only that, snapping photos of me somehow. That ended up on a social media post, and they said that my husband was standing outside, and he ran in the house to avoid being served. He doesn't mind me sharing this, but my husband had shingles, and it landed on the bottom of his foot. If you've ever had shingles, they're very painful. And he was on medication and was actually asleep when this happened. It let me know the level of lies that people would go to in order to push a narrative. And this attorney had no problem putting his seal and logo on this post, letting everyone know that he was okay with this. The dangerous part is that he said that they were posted up on my house looking for my husband. I'm a law enforcement officer, so saying that you're posted up on my house is pretty much a threat when you think about it. And the funny thing is that this attorney used to be a deputy at the very station I worked for. I now am helping people navigate resilience. And what that looks like is that you have to be mad in that resilience. You know, people tell you, oh, just sunny side up, smile, shake it off. No, I say different. You can still smile while you're mad, mentally, actively, demonstratively mad. And the last D is document. It didn't happen if it wasn't written down. And incidents like what I just described about the shingles and me being shattered or derailed, if you will, in my career. I didn't just become this way. I've been documenting since the first time that I saw two deputies fight with a smaller Hispanic man because they were too fearful of the 6'5" black man. I learned early to write down the unusual, to speak about the things that people don't want to talk about. Because if we don't, we never fix it. We just glaze over it. And those pasted smiles turn into frowns. I work with people to this day, teaching them how to be mad resilient. Because my David and Goliath story with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, the largest sheriff's department in the nation, probably in the world, was this little bitty lieutenant who decided to fight back. And by the grace of God, I am so, so very grateful and thankful that I did. Oh my goodness. From the moment that I walked into this studio, I was floored. I was greeted by a beautiful woman who treated me like her sister. She immediately grabbed everything out of my hands and said, oh, okay, yeah, we're ready for you. Here's your chair. Here's where you're going to go. There was a makeup artist here, and everyone was tending to me. I felt like a queen. I walked in and I saw Che Brown, who I have a whole lot of respect for. This man is a ball of fire, moving around all over the place. But he helped me to see that my story mattered enough. The camera crew and everybody involved in this setup, just amazing, so welcoming and warming, and how they embraced me. This day, wow. They even had candy. Now, you know how to reach out to me if you have sweets. They must have known. But I think it is bigger than that. They know the human touch. That's something that technology and everything that is happening in this world can't replace. So, thank you, Che, for bringing my story to life. Thank you to the crew. I love you all, even though I've just met you. And I wish blessings for each of you.